I don't agree with all of the political rhetoric out there. I don't like a lot of the political rhetoric out there. It gets too caustic. I don't like how hostile it really feels right now between the left and the right, because ultimately, whether on the left or the right, there's something that's so much more important, and it's Christ. And if we as Christians can bring gentleness to with our message, as Alan Combs said to me, don't fight fire with fire, fight fire with water. I think that's wise advice. And if we can communicate the truth with a gentle heart, it'll go a long way.
Kayleigh, you wrote a book for such a time as this, where you're talking about your faith journey through your career, and you talk about how your predecessor, Sarah Huckabee, would read a devotional before every press briefing. And you continued that tradition. In fact, you've written a devotional of your own. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Sarah, she texted me a list of advice on the day of my first press briefing, and the final piece of advice was to pray and to trust in God. And she told me that she read her Jesus Calling before every press briefing. So I carried on the tradition. I read my Jesus Calling, and on that day of my first press briefing, May 1st, 2020, Sarah texted me her Jesus Calling book from May 1st, 2018. So exactly 2 years prior. And it basically said that God has designed this for you, a purpose, and you're here for a reason, and not to worry. But on the day of my first press briefing, I can tell you, Kirk, I worried quite a bit. I had tweeted out Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah. I prayed, but nevertheless, I was at 2 p.m. I'm supposed to be at the podium, but instead I was in my office crying. And my assistant came to me, you can't be crying right now. You've got to be at the podium. And she put my parents on speakerphone, and we prayed out loud together. And then I went to the West Wing bathroom and got on my knees and prayed for confidence and courage. And when I got to the podium, I had total and complete serenity. And it was not because of anything I had done. Yes, it's like I had been there my whole life. It was because I know Christians prayed across the country for our administration, and I felt it, and I felt total peace because it was Christ in me and Christ there beside me. I mean, I felt like I had been there forever. It was from crying to the podium.
Kayleigh, working as a Christian in the news media, a lot of people feel like they've got to walk on eggshells and they've got to not offend people when they're trying to be light in a dark place for fear that they might get fired or that they get mocked. Do you feel that way? Or do you charge in there feeling like, no, God is with me, and greater is he who is in me than he who's in the world?
Yeah, the latter. I mean, I walk in and I'm very upfront about what I believe, that I believe in the Bible and biblical truth, that I believe Jesus Christ is Savior, that I believe that Jesus Christ is the way to heaven. I mean, these are my beliefs I've had my entire life. And, I'm not afraid to say them, but I understand the feeling. I understand where now, we're covering the story at Fox and in Finland, a woman who's just tweeting out the Bible, like literally the Bible. And
right, I saw
basically is being prosecuted in a court of law. And then like here in our own country, First Liberty, they're a great organization that works on religious freedom. They are representing a guy named Coach Kennedy, who all he did, and this has been going on for years, this case, is literally bow down and silently fold his hands and not say anything, but just silently pray to God after a football game, and he's fired from his job. And thankfully, the Supreme Court finally is taking up that case, thanks, I would argue, to Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch, all Trump appointees who are changing the makeup of the court. So I understand feeling that way as a Christian, but we got to be bold. The antidote to darkness is light, and the antidote to a really grim future is filling the world with a lot of Christian babies who can bring that light to the world.
I think so many conservatives look at mainstream media today and they see an agenda and a bias behind so many things, so many stories that they see, and individuals who are trying to push that. And as ambassadors from heaven, as Christians who have a message of grace that we want to get out to the world and we want the world to be reconciled to God, do you feel sort of like this covert ambassador from heaven? Or do you feel like, no, I'm just Kayleigh doing my job. This is what I believe, and I don't have an agenda? Or is it okay to say, no, we actually do, and it's a good agenda?
We as Christians, one of the keys is when we share our points, to do so with gentleness and to do so with love and with compassion. I don't agree with all of the political rhetoric out there. I don't like a lot of the political rhetoric out there. It gets too caustic. I don't like how hostile it really feels right now between the left and the right, because ultimately, whether on the left or the right, there's something that's so much more important, and it's Christ. And if we as Christians can bring gentleness with our message, as Alan Combs said to me, don't fight fire with fire, fight fire with water. I think that's wise advice. And if we can communicate the truth with a gentle heart, it'll go a long way.
I know that working on the Huckabee Show was really helpful for you. It was influential for you. And he was a bit of a mentor when you were there. Do you feel that now, that in the position that you're in, that you have a chance to sort of pay that forward for aspiring politicians, aspiring people who want to come into the media and give them a hand up and give them some advice?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, Governor Huckabee was so wonderful to me. And you talk about God-ordained paths. I mean, I'm on the Huckabee Show, and Sarah Sanders is running around the green room, the time she would come. She was a young woman out in politics, and I was just a producer on a show. And to think that there were 2 press secretaries there in that green room of the Mike Huckabee Show, it's just funny. And it just shows how God works. So yes, no doubt about it. I think paying it forward, the time that Governor Huckabee took with me, the great advice he gave me, the wise counsel, paying that forward is no doubt a big part of paving a generation of hopefully future reporters. We need more reporters who are going to ask tough questions, who are going to be driven by truth. And to the degree I can inspire people to go into media, politics, and reporting, I certainly will do so.
Well, I'm so glad that you feel that way. I'm so glad that you've taken the bold step into this arena that many people of faith don't want to go into. We often don't think of our kids. We want them to grow up and love God and make a difference. And so we think of, well, maybe you could be a missionary, or you'll be a pastor, or you'll do something like this. But lawyers and politicians or actors in Hollywood, I mean, you'll for sure lose your faith. But where else do we need people of strong faith and conviction with a biblical worldview? Because these are the places that shape the world that we live in. So I'm so personally thankful for your commitment and what you're doing. I think a lot of us want to know. We see someone like you and we say, wait a minute, you're in media, you're in politics. Is she ever going to run for office?
It's a question I'm asked often. And I mean, just what I'll say is, it's quite a path when you run for office. I mean, your family gets attacked with baseless. I saw what happened to Governor Huckabee. They attacked his family, and he's got the best family in the world. My family is much like his. It's a brutal world out there. If I ever felt strongly called by God, of course, but I'd have to feel a very strong calling, because I will say I love life at Fox. I get to see my daughter. I get to enjoy life. But if I ever felt a strong calling from God, of course, I'm going to follow his path for my life. So, who knows? We'll see.
I love that answer. And God has got each of us where we're supposed to be on the stage of the world, playing the role that he's written for us. And we just need to be faithful there. And you're being faithful where you are. And I'm trying to do the same. So, sister, keep up the great work.
For such a time as this. Thank you. He puts us all here for such a time as this.
Thanks so much for joining us today. It's fascinating to see how God is strategically positioning the people in the media for such a time as this. Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron, and thanks for watching the Kirk Cameron on TV and YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. A couple of things. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so that you're notified every time a new video is posted. And be sure to share your takeaway in the comments and invite a friend to join the conversation.